Hello and welcome to another Technique Tuesday video. In this week's video I'm going to show you how to pipe this adorable stacking cups cookie. We're going to be using our vegan raw icing recipe and I'll show you how to use the wet on wet technique to create this design. So let's zoom in and watch how it's made. Okay, so we're going to start with our white icing first. I'm using a flood consistency for all of the different colours on this cookie. I'm starting by outlining my first section and then I just go back and forth, keeping an even pressure on the bag to fill in that space. I pick it up and give it a little bit of a jiggle, and then I like to use my scribe tool just to tap down any of those peaks that remain where I took my icing bag away from the cookie. Next I'm going on to my pink, and it's exactly the same process. This cookie has the same techniques throughout, and this is the wet on wet technique. So because I'm using two colours of the same consistency, when you pipe one straight after the other, they'll actually melt into each other, and that's called the wet on wet technique. So let's go on to our second cup. We're doing our white again, and just tapping down those little bits. And then I'm going to go on to the third white section. Now it's entirely up to you which order you do these in. I like to try and leave a little bit of a gap between each of the colours, just so that I can have my icing settle really nicely, and it also will just start to very slowly dry out too. Now I'm going to go back and add in my green. And the good thing about this is because my colours are butting right up to each other and I'm doing it before they fully dry out, I'm not going to get colour bleed, which is a really frustrating thing when you've spent a lot of time piping on designs such as this one. Just using my scribe tool here to smooth out that little piece of green as well, just to give it the nice sharp shape. And we're carrying on with our blue. Now I'll pop the link up the top for you for my consistencies video. I'm using a flood consistency here, which is quite thin, but not too thin that it would actually run off the cookie. And that's also why I do my outlines as well. I always outline, then fill, and I use the same consistency for both. And that's just to hold my icing in place. As long as your consistency is correct, it will not run off the cookie at this point. Just showing you that wet on wet consistency again. And the next thing we're going to do is take our darker pink. I'm going to do the handles first. And this is just the same process. I'm outlining and then I'm slowly filling in. And for this one, I'm actually using the tip of the bag to help smooth it as well. You can do that if you don't have a scribe tool. And of course, if you don't have a scribe tool, you can always use a toothpick for this as well. Whatever you have to hand, just make sure you've got something that's really nice and sharp so that you can get into the icing and smooth all those peaks down. And let's go on to our third handle. You'll notice as well I'm using a mini cookie turntable. This is great so that I can turn it around and it doesn't get too awkward for my wrist when I'm piping. It also helps relieve any stresses on your arm when you're piping a lot of cookies. Okay, so that's the basic piping done. The next thing we're going to do is add those accent lines just to show the separation of colour on each of the cups. And again, this is going to butt right up to the other colours and just kind of sink into them because we're using that same consistency of icing again. And I'm just finishing them off with my scribe tool to tap down all those little peaks at the end. Always make sure whenever you're piping lines as well that you keep your bag off the surface. Your bag should never touch the surface of your cookie when you're piping, or it will actually drag through that icing and you won't get such a great finish. And here's our last finishing touches. These are some rosettes that I piped and let dry fully earlier. Just popped a little bit of icing on them to finish it off. Okay, so that's our cookie finish. Let's have a good look at it. I'm going to pick it up carefully because it's obviously still wet. So you can see we've got our wet on wet design on the top just to show you with some basic dot work. And then these are the transfers that I made, and I'll pop the link for you so you can see how to make these. These are called rosettes, so you can see how to make those as well. This is going to take about 24 hours to dry completely now, and I would advise that you let it dry for 24 hours before you package it for somebody, and just leave it dry flat as well. Or if you have a dehydrator, you could always leave it dry in there as well. I really hope you've enjoyed watching this Technique Tuesday. Don't forget to check out the rest of the videos on my channel, and I hope you hit that subscribe button as well. And of course, if you do decide to make cookies like this, make sure you tag me with the hashtag #BakeWithCakeAngel. I'd love to see what you make. Thanks for joining me, and I look forward to seeing you on my next video. Bye for now.